About 18 years ago, my wife and I were in Salt Lake City. We were staying at the Ronald McDonald House. One of my sons had an appointment at Primary Children's Hospital, and I had an appointment with someone in curriculum in the church office building. I told my wife to take the car so she could drive Joey to the hospital, and I would just walk to the church office building, which is kind of funny because as soon as I got out of the Ronald McDonald House, I saw the church office building and realized it was much further away than I thought. So the gas station right on the corner, so I see this guy wearing a suit pumping gas, and before I could tell who he was, I said, is there any way you could, first of all I asked, are you going to the church office building? He said, yes. I said, is there any way I could get a ride with you? I was wearing a suit, and he kind of trusted me, and he said, yeah, and I walked around the pumps, and it was Richard G. Scott. And I didn't want to say his name wrong. I didn't want to get the wrong apostle, so I just said, you're, and he said, Elder Scott, and I said, yes, you are, and he said, go ahead and get in the front seat, and he had a little Honda Accord, so I kind of waited till he paid for the gas. In fact, I said, when he said he was Richard Scott, I said, you're pumping your own gas, and he said, well, yeah, and I just was an idiot, but he said, go ahead and get in. I waited till he came to the car, and I got in, and we were driving to church office building, and he asked what we're doing. I told him about my wife and my son, and told him I was going to talk to someone in curriculum about including the second coming and millennium in our depictions and our discussions of the plan. And he said, of course, they're important parts of the plan of salvation. And I didn't dare say, well, then why don't I ever see it? But I thought it was interesting he said that. Later on, I think within that year, I wrote to a scholar in the church and said, we ought to include that. And he wrote and said, of course, they're important parts of the plan. And I don't know how we can say, of course, but I started asking church educators, teachers, is the second coming of millennium, are the second coming of millennium important parts of the plan? And they all say, of course, they use the same words, which is really kind of interesting since I don't see it depicted, but they say that. And I think I know why, because I don't think we really think it's part of the plan until we kind of think about it. Well, yeah, of course it's a part of the plan. Because I came up with a question, and the question is this: what will we do in the millennium? And the answer is invariably the same. The answer will be temple work and missionary work. But you know, and I know, and the people that I talk to know, that will be taught by Christ. Section 101 and section 121, very clear that when he comes, he'll teach us all things. How the earth was made, the purpose and the end thereof, and many other things. But that's never an answer I get, which is fascinating when you consider that, man, if you had a choice, and not to negate the importance and the joy of doing temple work in the millennium, if there was a class that offered that said, Christ is going to teach you how he made a fish, I would line up for that class, and I think most people would. And yet, when they're asked what we do in the millennium, learn from Christ is not our first answer, if it's an answer at all. In fact, I cannot find in our literature anywhere that being taught by Christ in the millennium is an important part of the plan of salvation. But it has to be. Section 121 says it is, but we just don't. For some reason, we don't say that. And yet this framework that the Savior gave us in section 1 and 133 talks about the second coming and millennium a lot. Like he insisted it's part of the picture. The common movie that all the prophets saw include the second coming and millennium. It's part of the plan. It's part of the plan for our salvation. I like when I teach older people, and I just say it's part of our plan to talk about being taught by Christ and millennium, how to become like God. There's a feeling that comes to them and a thought that comes to them, and I can pretty much predict the word that comes to them, and the word is hope. Because I think when you're older, you have a little more awareness of how pathetic our progression is, and the idea of becoming like God is more daunting, and so the idea that we'd have some time to progress before we end up in the celestial kingdom is a comforting and a hopeful thought. So it's part of the plan. It's an important part of the plan. It's on the Savior's framework, and we ought to include a 1,000-year ministry of Jesus Christ in our depiction and discussions of the plan. It's kind of important. Thank you. Again, go see regardingtheplan.com.